So I'm going to talk about kind of history of ASIP, why it matters, what we do, and how we lead into the future. So question is why? Necessity is the mother of invention, according to Plato. So what was happening in those days was in 1998, the beginning of erosion of interventional techniques, elimination of facet joint procedures from ASCs. That was the memo on 6/1998. And there was so much apathy and animosity among existing organizations. And believe it or not, in those days, ISIS was the most reachable, acceptable solution. And Rick Derby helped quite a bit in getting the message out. So it was an impossible and incomprehensible situation. So at that time, as Peter Drucker said, the greatest danger in times of turbulence is not the turbulence itself, but it is the act with yesterday's logic. So we were all applying the previous logic, if it worked or not, but we still wanted to do the same thing. So then we went into this ASIP and with the philosophy that what Ronald Reagan said, there is no limit to what a man or woman can do or where he or she can go if he or she doesn't mind who gets the credit. They didn't want us to do anything on our own, and they did not want to help all these existing organizations. And also, it reminds me of Sam Rayburn, who was the speaker. Any jackass can kick down a barn, but it takes a good carpenter to build one. So, the beginnings, we were dealing with this crisis with the ASCs, with the facet joint interventions and other procedures being removed. At that time, I heard a lecture from Patrick Morisi, and I asked him to be our advisor. So he agreed with it, and he advised us to start the organization. He is now the governor of West Virginia. So we started as AOPMA, Association of Pain Management Anesthesiologists. So we thought ASA would help us, but they became so animus and didn't want to do much. So afterwards, we changed the name to American Society of Interventional Pain Physicians. So our goal was to preserve interventional techniques. It may look like it is just for ASCs, but it is not just for ASCs. If ASCs lost, everything else lost too. Congressional support from Congressman Ed Whitfield. He's the one who supported us from day one. So if you are in the audience, if there were anybody who started with ASIP and still there, that would be him and very few others. So we went into from impossible to inevitable and from imminent or avoidable to impossible. So also always remember, you must never forget who was there for you when no one else was. And this, I have been very much interested in this quote: a critic enjoys a tremendous advantage if he has done nothing himself. So first year started, we started with just the members of Pain Management Center and few other members joined. By end of the year, we had 265 members. We started newsletters and a pain physician journal at the end, advocacy, and at the annual meeting, Congressman Ed Whitfield was our keynote speaker. Then we had elections. And we also had multiple new codes coming at that time because of Sam Hassenbush was the leading figure on that. The first year, so we decided to change the name of the organization, and Ken Warley came up with this idea of having a specialty designation, and someone else or Ken Warley came up with this that we need to have prescription drug monitoring program, PDMP, eventually which evolved into National All Schedules Prescription Electronic Reporting System, But most importantly, it created a system for each state. Even though NASPER is no longer there, it was not funded, but now each state has their own PDMP and it has access to pain physicians. And we also decided to start the pain physician journal, which was already in the process. So we gave the awards to the ones who supported us in the first year, mainly Ed Whitfield and Mitch McConnell, who is retiring now, Senator McConnell, both from Kentucky. And there were multiple others. Some of them are retired, some of them are in a different position. So this is how we started. ASIPP as Association, Solidarity, Innovation, Perseverance, Preservation, Accurate, Safe, Interventional, Proven Procedures. So we started our mission statement, safe, high quality, cost effective, interventional pain medicine techniques for the diagnosis and treatment of pain and related disorders. Now, our membership, if you look at it, it was total of 265 with 5 life members, now 258. Now the membership is about 4750. We have many residents and fellows. And unfortunately, some of them don't pay their dues, but we still have them as members and give them the newsletters and journal, everything else. So this is how it was started as Pain Physician News, then converted into Pain Physician Journal. Now this is the Pain Physician Journal after 28 years. It is one of the hottest journals. So second year, we changed the name to ASIPP. At that time, there were 9 new codes approved, but not included in ASC list. So we got them included and we delayed the ASC rule. And at the same time, we started the ASIPP PAC. And to create the specialty designation, we introduced the legislation by Congressman Ed Whitfield. But Chairman Bill Thomas said he wanted to get this through MedPAC rather than through legislation. We agreed to that. We started having workshops and started working on NASPOR. So this is the PAC. PAC is very important. In the third year, MedPAC study started. They provided us with the IPM techniques definition. I don't have time to go there. In the specialty designation, they were going to provide IPM, but it was hijacked by ASA and AAPM. They removed the interventional. And the same day, the terrorist attack happened. At that time, third annual meeting was scheduled for October. We invited Secretary Tommy Thompson. He came. And then we started doing the efforts for IPM designation and subsequent survival. So these were our speakers on that day. This is the specialty designation for pain management. So at this time, NASPER passed we were able to get a SGR patch, sustainable growth rate formula. Probably everybody forgot about it, but we used to call it unsustainable. We also got a new code for one-day adhesive lysis. Finally, we got a specialty designation for IPM in 2002. We also initiated CAC membership. We thought that CAC membership was extremely important, and you need to have state societies for that. We started having state societies in the whole country with each state. The Texas was already there, Connecticut was already there, so rest of the state societies we started, state societies. So this is 09 specialty designation for interventional pain management. At the same time, we introduced the NASPER and expanded our educational curriculum and had a very good legislative session. We started first pain medicine board review courses, and we started working on CAC membership, and Senator Hutchinson joined our team. The first Lifetime Achievement Award was given to none other than Prithviraj. And we used to give these different types of awards in those days. We don't do that anymore. And we also gave Distinguished Service Award to Congressman Ed Whitfield. Eventually, we gave him a Lifetime Achievement Award. He's the first one, a non-physician, to receive these awards. So Capitol Hill visits were highly successful. We 75 visit 75 members visited 201 legislative offices, 54 in the Senate out of 100. Can you believe that? So, sixth year, we continued the educational program, AMA membership, and we started 49 state societies. CAC stalemate, NASPER passed House 3 times, then started having stumbling blacks in the House also. ASC rule was finalized with modifications, and we worked and presented a classification, and I actually spent whole week in Washington working on this classification. So at that time, we started getting positive results about mandatory CAC membership. Then NASPER passes. It was signed into law, and mandatory CAC membership was because of Ann Northrop. She added the language in the appropriations bill. Again, SGR patch, and we had extensive seventh annual meeting, legislative visits, and for opioid guidelines. So here is the President Bush signing NASPER into the law on August 11th, 2005. That was Dr. or Senator Hutchinson's birthday, August 11th. And I still have the pen if anybody has questions. These are all the Senate members of the Congress. Frank Falco, he opposes everything we do now, but he was a strong supporter. And Northrop, she's not in the Congress anymore. And Ed Whitfield, he's right here. So we got our CAC membership. This was one of the hardest things to get in. At that time, then we started changing and having a different president. I didn't want to continue as the president any longer. And we also had award ceremony. Again, we honored Sam Hassenbush. He was diagnosed with brain cancer. And these are all the ones who helped us. This is Ollie Dunbar, again, Ann Northrop, Frank Falco, and David Cloth. Hans Hansen, unfortunately, he passed away. Ken Warley, and one of the assistants, Kathy, used to work with Frank Pallone, and she's a physician who worked with Jeff Sessions, who sponsored the bill NASPER in the Senate. And these are all the congressional visits and speeches. 60 ASIPP member, 200 senators and representatives again. Eighth year comes, we introduced here ABIP, American Board of Interventional Pain Physicians, and pain physician finally got onto PubMed, and first ABIP Part 2 examination was given. Continued educational programs, but same time, injection safety issues came about, infections, and many people were dying. So, one needle, one syringe, only one time philosophy started. At that time, it was very difficult to find. Omnipaque was for $50, and we finally came up with GPO. That was because of the idea from CMS, CDC, and you can still use it. and very good. Now, by 10th year, we were all upside. Now we are starting the entire medicine declines. At that time, they also started Noridian and ISIS collaboration starts with MPW. Uh, It also started with Rathmel requesting for review of neurological complications. So I kind of call it ASA-ISIS collaboration, MPW silent epidemic. They still keep writing letters. Continued educational silent epidemic goes on, FDA advisory, Noridian. It was depressing times in those days with our own fight inside. The progress we made was we are losing the progress. There were even questions about eliminating facet joints completely. In 16th year, we were in New Orleans again. The continued progress. And so on the FDA issue, we petitioned them with 1,040 physician signatures, more than 6,000 patient letters and testimony. And we succeeded in that. So they reported that FDA has not approved corticosteroids for use. At that time, after all the meetings, we got out of ASIPP withdrew from the committee because they were putting strict restrictions. So they published safeguards to prevent neurologic complications. Then, because of our petition, etc., the FDA issued that we find that available data do not currently support either a contraindication or a warning focused only on cervical transforaminal injection of suspension glucocorticoids. It would have been okay with us if they just issued that. This was a response to our petition. Now, 17th year comes. At that time, we had several significant epidural cuts. Eventually, we were able to revert them. This was the multi-specialty group, which was ASIP was there, only one with the IPM, and all these societies believe that. So our strategy was again the same thing, impossible to inevitable. We didn't want CMS managing techniques based on ISIS recommendations, and we didn't want to reverse the progress. So then we move on 2015 to 16, the saga continues, and we had all the societies come together. Nothing has happened much. Then we also had again the legislative visits. At this time, physician payment issues started taking shape and we started losing money, more cuts, increasing expenses. Then COVID comes, we developed evidence-based risk mitigation strategies, and we had multiple congressional meetings. That is how the telemedicine started, and we have been working on this telemedicine issue ever since that time. So we continued to work on 24th year, and we had a radiologist as the president. Fee schedule cuts 10.4%, with inflation now about 20%. We continued the work, and we are publishing books and articles and working on the negative publications from BMJ, etc. And most recently, we had Capitol Hill visits in March. And this is where we are with the IPM. There is a lot of burden everywhere. Market competition, patient retention is issue, reimbursement and financial pressures. Our procedures are going down. This is how ABIP is recognized in 16 states, and 11 state boards do not have any rules and regulations, and we are still working on these states pending. I'm hoping someday we will have all of them. So if you look at if you wake me up in the middle of the night and ask me what is the top achievement, I would say membership in the CAC. The next one is the two journals. After that, PDMP in all states. Of course, interventional pain management designation, payment reforms, research and education, ABIP certification, vendor partnerships, and now we have the extension of the telehealth through next year, December. Thank you.